Russ on their roster?
Not at all. They'd be making a mistake if they rush into a trade. First-year GM Raphael Stone cannot be bullied into trading 2 future Hall of Famers who have 3 years left on their contract. That's ridiculous. Houston has to regain control of this narrative because whoever leaked it that they want out did a disservice to the Rockets and to their clients, Harden, I think it was the agents, Harden and Westbrook, because they took away all of the Rockets' leverage in trade talks. The Rockets need to regain control so that they can take control of the trade talks.
If you're going to trade one of the 30 greatest players in the history of the NBA, or certainly the last 50 years, of which James Harden is, the key piece cannot be 26-year-old Karis LeVert. So I understand, no disrespect Karis LeVert, but come on. So I understand that it could get uncomfortable, but if coming back to the Rockets is not Ben Simmons, Michael Porter Jr., a trade that I created this morning that I think is interesting, Donovan Mitchell, kind of changes scenery for both guys. If you're not getting that level of player plus picks, then it's a non-starter. Then be uncomfortable. So I do think the Rockets ultimately will make at least one major trade, but you cannot be forced or rushed into it and set your franchise back years and years, Brandon, when you don't even have all your future picks to begin with because of the trade to acquire Russ.
Huge mistake. Come on, guys. You're going to lose this regardless. You just said they're 2 future Hall of Famers. There's nothing you can get in return that's going to replace this production. Look, another thing, you got to think about the players' perspective. You guys keep thinking about the owners and the general managers, but what about the players? They hold the leverage. If they don't want to be there, they won't be there. Now, what will happen tomorrow? What happened in a couple of months? I don't know. But James Harden, Russell Westbrook hold all of the cards. They have all of the leverage. And let me ask you guys this question. And you don't have to answer it, but it's something to think about. The general manager wants out, he gets out. The head coach wants out, he gets out. So now the superstar player wants out, and now everybody's saying, oh, he has 3 years left on his contract. Baloney.
Okay. I would say if I'm Steven Silas, I would do this. I'd sit down with James Harden and say, hey, let's just put all our garbage out on the table. And here's what I would say. Your usage rate is out of control. I'm going to change that. We've been playing the wrong way. Also, when we get to the playoffs, you know what? You don't show up, dude. So when we talk about, like, our ceiling is your ceiling. You probably deserve some responsibility for putting up bricks all playoffs and setting a historic turnover record. Number 3, ISOs. We're not going to play that way anymore. We've tried it. We tried it with Russ. We tried it with CP3. It doesn't work. We're going to shoot some 2-pointers. Oh, my gosh, just like the Lakers did and won the championship. We're going to rebound the ball, and we're going to pass the ball. Give me a chance, and if it still doesn't work, we'll trade you before the deadline.
Guys, I have awkward moments all the time. It's not that big of a deal. Let's stick with the Rockets for our next story. A report out yesterday that the Rockets and Wizards have discussed a deal centered around Russell Westbrook going to Washington and John Wall coming back to Houston in return. Nick, who would win in this deal?
Oh, the Wizards would win. I understand that Russ, because of the bubble performance, is right now his value is at an all-time low. But before he got COVID and before he hurt his quad, it should be noted, in the 3 months before the NBA season shut down, he was giving you 31, 8, and 7 on, and this is the most important number, 50% shooting. Yeah. John Wall, we haven't seen him play in so long that there is more of an unknown with Wall than there is with Russ. So while Broussard, I don't think this would be a terrible trade. I do think that Houston would have to get more in return than just John Wall. I do think you're going to have to get, and I think Beal would fit well with Russ, by the way. So I do think Washington would have to include more than John Wall to make this trade make sense for Houston. Brandon?
I mean, I guess the Wizards. Yeah, I mean, I guess the Wizards because, maybe they'll sell more tickets, but this is a wash. I mean, Come on, what's the goal here? The goal is to win a championship. And neither of these guys are going to come in and put their team in contention. So for this, I got to say, you know, maybe the Wizards. But, you know, if I'm Russell Westbrook, I'm looking for an opportunity to go win and compete at a high level. And I don't think the Washington Wizards presents that opportunity.
Well, Brandon's right in that neither team would win a championship, but the Wizards would win this deal going away because I think they'd be a playoff team in the East. They'd be exciting. They would create some buzz finally around D.C. that hasn't been there in a long time. And Russ and Bill could play together. Russ would be on the ball. Bill's a great shooter. I think in the Eastern Conference, they make a little noise at the bottom of that playoff group. Whereas if you're Houston, John Wall would be an even worse fit with James Harden than Russell Westbrook was. So if you're trading Westbrook, then you probably are going to end up trading Harden right soon thereafter. So why would I want John Wall? I get no salary relief because he's got the same contract as Westbrook. I would want a young player, not a 30-year-old coming off a bad injury who hasn't played in years.
Yeah, that's so old. The NBA offseason never stops giving. With Harden wanting out, the music world is wanting in on where he should go. Meek Mill reportedly trying to convince James Harden to come to Philly. Brandon, you buying Meek Mill having influence over where Harden ends up?
Absolutely not. What is Meek Mill going to say? Yo, son, you got to stick to the process. We got Joel Embiid. That pick and roll is going to be nice. Like, you come over here, we could potentially win. Don't worry about the bad body language that you saw from Joel Embiid in the bubble. Don't worry about the bad leadership. You're going to be good. No, the best opportunity right now, and it's going to be hard for him to bring it together, but the best opportunity is the Brooklyn Nets. There's nothing that compares to playing with KD and being in Brooklyn.
Nice Philly impersonation, Brandon, but no, he's not going to have any impact on what Harden does. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is a basketball decision for Harden. However, I do think he still maybe could end up in Philly if Houston shows some patience. Wait it out. I know Philly wants to go with Simmons and Embiid, give them a shot with Doc Rivers, but if they don't mesh together as well as they like, maybe at the trade deadline or heck, even next offseason, they might be willing to part with one of those guys for James Harden.
Okay, so here's the thing. You're both wrong. Meek Mill absolutely could influence Harden into strongly considering Philly. You have to understand the player and the person we're talking about. And part of yes, James Harden wants to win championships. James Harden wants to make a bunch of money. He's made a bunch of money. Wants to win MVPs. He's done that too. James Harden also wants to enjoy his nightlife. We know that about him. This is a man who, I broke this story 6 years ago, had his jersey retired in a strip club in Houston. So Meek Mill telling it to James Harden about the Philly nightlife, about the scenes, about the what goes along with being a Sixer, 100% could have at least a small impact. That's first of all. Second of all, I'm just curious if Jay Prince can get involved and tilt the balance back to him staying in Houston. If we're talking about guys having some sway over this, we need a major New York. Where's Cameron when you need him to rep the Nets? I need to answer those questions. So right now, I absolutely think Meek Mill